scary stories to fall asleep to. The woods my father told me never to enter. I never really talked about this before, mostly because I know how it sounds. If someone told me they heard their dead father calling their name from outside a bedroom window, I'd probably think they were grieving or dreaming or remembering things wrong. And honestly, that's what I told myself at first too. But I know what I heard. This happened a little over 3 years ago, right after my dad died. He had a stroke in the kitchen, according to my mother. She said it was quick. She said he didn't suffer. She kept repeating that part, like it was something she needed to believe more than something she wanted me to know. My dad wasn't an easy man to understand. He wasn't cruel. He never hit me, never drank too much, never did anything dramatic like that. But he was always tense, always listening, always checking locks, watching the tree line, standing on the back porch at night with one hand on the railing and the other in his jacket pocket. When I was a kid, I thought that was just how fathers were in quiet places. Now I don't think that anymore. The house I grew up in sat near the end of a dead-end road in rural western Pennsylvania. Not deep wilderness or anything like that, but far enough out that you noticed when a car passed. Our closest neighbor was maybe half a mile away, hidden behind trees and a long gravel driveway. At night, the whole road went dark except for porch lights and the occasional glow from a passing truck. Behind our house were the woods. They weren't as special looking. Just trees, old deer paths, rocks covered in moss, and a few low spots that filled with rainwater in the spring. But my dad treated those woods like they were a locked room inside our own property. He had one rule: don't go in, not alone, not with friends, not even during the day. When I was little, I could play in the back clearing where the grass ended and the first tree started. But if I stepped too far past that line, he'd call me back right away. Stay where I can see you. That was always what he said. And if I asked why, he'd say, because I said so. My mother used to act like it was nothing. She'd tell me my dad worried too much. Once, when I was about 13, I asked her if something had happened back there, and she just sighed and said, "Your father grew up hearing stupid stories." Then she changed the subject. That was how my parents handled most things. They didn't explain. They buried. After the funeral, my mother called and asked if I could come help sort through the house. She said she didn't want to stay there alone much longer. She was thinking about selling it by spring. I said yes. I didn't really want to go back, but I also didn't have a good enough reason not to. I drove out on a Thursday afternoon in late October. The roads looked exactly the same as I remembered. The gas station with the faded sign, the old white church near the turnoff, the ditches full of wet leaves. The farther I drove, the more everything seemed to slow down. By the time I reached the house, the sky had turned that flat gray color you get before evening in the fall. My mother was waiting on the porch. She looked smaller than she had at the funeral. Older too, even though only a few days had passed. She hugged me quickly, then stepped back and asked if I was hungry. I said no. That was pretty much the kind of family we were. Inside, the house smelled familiar. Coffee, dust, old wood, and something else underneath it. Something damp and stale, like paper left in a basement too long. I noticed it in the hallway, but when I tried to focus on it, it seemed to disappear. The living room was full of boxes. My mother had already started sorting things into piles. Keep, donate, trash. My dad's recliner was still by the window, facing the TV. His glasses were still on the side table. That got to me more than I expected. Not the funeral, not the flowers, the glasses. They made it feel like he had just stepped outside and might come back in any second. We spent the afternoon packing dishes, old mail, tools from the laundry room, and a few photo albums my mother didn't want to look through. She stayed busy the whole time, almost too busy. Every time there was a quiet moment, she found something else to do. Around sunset, I noticed her standing at the kitchen sink, staring out the back window. She wasn't washing anything. She was just looking. "What?" I asked. She blinked and turned toward me. "Nothing. You saw something?" She looked back outside. "I thought I saw the dog." That caught me off guard. "We haven't had a dog in years." "I know," she said. Then she went back to wiping the counter like she hadn't said anything strange. I didn't push it. After dinner, I took a beer out onto the back porch. I don't even know why. Maybe I just needed air. Maybe I wanted to stand where my dad used to stand and see what he'd been watching all those years. The porch faced the woods directly. The clearing sloped down for maybe 30 yards before the trees began. The moon was bright enough that I could see the line where the grass ended. Beyond that, everything was dark. At first, I heard normal night sounds, crickets, wind in the dry leaves, a dog barking somewhere far down the road. Then it all stopped, not slowly, not one sound fading after another. It just stopped. The quiet was so sudden that I lowered the beer from my mouth and listened. A few seconds later, I heard 3 soft knocks. Knock, knock, knock. They came from somewhere beyond the porch. Not the door, not the wall, the yard. I stood there, holding my breath. Nothing else happened. I told myself it was a branch, maybe a loose shutter, maybe sound carrying strangely from another house. But even while I was thinking that, I knew it didn't sound random. It sounded careful. I went back inside and locked the door. My mother was in the living room with the TV on low. She looked up at me. "Cold out?" "Yeah," I said. She nodded once, like that meant something, then looked back at the screen. I slept in my old bedroom that night. My mother had barely changed it. Same dresser, same faded blue walls, same shelf with a couple of old baseball trophies I forgot I still had. Being in there felt wrong. Not scary at first, just wrong. Like I had stepped into a version of myself I didn't fit anymore. I couldn't sleep. The house made all the sounds old houses make. Pipes ticking, wood settling, wind pressing against the siding. Every few minutes, something creaked in the hallway and made me open my eyes. Sometime after midnight, I got up to use the bathroom. On the way back, I noticed light under my father's office door. I stopped. The office had been dark all evening. I was sure of it. My mother's bedroom door was closed. The hallway was quiet. I pushed open the office door slowly. The desk lamp was on. That alone was enough to make me uneasy. But then I saw the drawer. The right-hand drawer of my father's desk was hanging open. When I was growing up, that drawer was always locked. I knew because I'd tried to open it more than once. My dad never yelled at me about much, but he yelled when he caught me near that desk. I stepped inside. The room smelled stronger than the rest of the house. Dust, old paper, and that same damp smell from the hallway. I crouched by the drawer and looked inside. There were pens, receipts, a small flashlight, a box of old ammunition, and underneath everything, a folded paper map. I took it out and opened it on the desk. It looked like a survey map. Property lines, tree markings, handwritten notes in the margins. The paper was yellowed and soft at the folds. One section behind our house had been circled in red ink. The circle had been drawn hard, like whoever made it was angry or scared. Beside it were 2 words in my dad's handwriting. "Don't enter." I stared at those words for a long time. It should have felt ridiculous. My father, still leaving rules behind even after he was gone. But I didn't laugh. I didn't feel annoyed. I felt sick. Because the circled part of the map lined up with the woods behind the house as the exact place he had warned me away from my whole life. I folded the map and stood there, listening to the quiet office. For some reason, I didn't want to leave it on the desk. I didn't want my mother to know I had found it. Not yet. So I took it back to my room and slipped it into my overnight bag. I turned off the lamp in the office and closed the door. That should have been the strangest thing that happened that night. It wasn't. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because the next thing I remember is waking up all at once. Not slowly, all at once. My room was dark except for moonlight pressing through the curtains. I lay still, not sure what had woken me. Then I heard it again, my name, very soft, from outside my window. I didn't move. I just stared at the curtain. For one stupid second, I thought maybe it was my mother. Maybe she was outside for some reason, calling me from the yard. But the thought fell apart almost immediately, because it wasn't her voice, it was my father's, low, tired, close, the way he used to say my name when he didn't want to scare me, but needed me to listen. My mouth went dry. I sat up slowly, and the floorboards gave a small creak under the bed. Outside, something scraped gently against the siding, not like claws, more like fingertips dragging down the wall. I wanted to call out, I wanted to ask who was there, but some instinct in me, something old and deep, told me not to answer. Then the voice came again, my name, and after a pause, in that same calm voice, my father whispered, "Open up." I didn't open the window. I want to make that clear, because even now, when I think back on that moment, part of me feels guilty, like I ignored my father when he needed help. Which is stupid, I know. He was dead. There was no version of that night where opening the window made sense. But grief doesn't care about sense. For a few seconds, I just sat there with my back against the headboard, staring at the curtains. My room was cold, not freezing exactly, but cold enough that my hands had gone stiff around the blanket. I could hear my own breathing in the dark. Outside, the voice whispered my name again. Then it said, "It's okay." That was worse somehow, because my dad had said that to me a lot when I was little, not in big emotional moments, just ordinary things. If I fell off my bike, if thunder woke me up, if I got sick in the car on one of those long drives we used to take, he'd say, "It's okay," in that low, rough voice of his. Like he wasn't good at comfort, but was trying anyway. Hearing it outside my window, 3 days after his funeral, made something in me almost break. I got out of bed, but I didn't go to the window. I backed toward the door instead, keeping my eyes on the curtains the whole time. The floor creaked under my heel. The sound seemed too loud. The voice stopped. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then something tapped the glass, just once. I left the room without turning on the light. My mother's bedroom door was shut. I stood in the hallway for a second, thinking about waking her, but I didn't. I still don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to hear her tell me I was imagining things. Maybe I was afraid she wouldn't be surprised. So I went to the living room, turned on the lamp beside the couch, and sat there until morning. I didn't sleep. Every now and then, the house made a small sound. A pipe ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Wind pressed against the windows. But I didn't hear my dad's voice again. When the sun finally came up, the whole thing felt less real. That's how fear works sometimes. At night, you know something is wrong. In the morning, you start explaining it away before you even mean to. I told myself I had been half asleep. I told myself grief could sound like anything. Then I went back to my room and looked at the window. There were 3 marks on the outside of the glass. Not scratches, not cracks. Just 3 faint smudges near the lower corner, like someone had touched the window with dirty fingertips. I stood there longer than I should have. Then I closed the curtains. My mother was already in the kitchen when I came out. She had coffee in front of her, but she wasn't drinking it. She looked up at me once and said, "You look terrible. Thanks. You sleep?" "Not really." She nodded and looked back at her cup. I waited a few seconds, then said, "Did you hear anything last night?" Her fingers tightened around the mug. "What do you mean, outside?" "No," she answered too fast. I sat across from her. "You sure?" I said no. That should have ended it, but I was too tired to be careful. I found Dad's map. She didn't look at me. The silence after that was different from normal silence. It had weight to it. "What map?" she asked. "The one in his desk." Her eyes moved toward the hallway. "You went through his desk?" The drawer was open. That drawer was private. "He's dead, Mom." The second I said it, I regretted it. Her face changed, but not the way I expected. She didn't look hurt. She looked afraid. I went to my room, got the map from my overnight bag, and brought it back to the kitchen. I unfolded it on the table. She stared at the red circle. Not confused, not surprised. She knew exactly what she was looking at. Why did he have this, I asked. She pushed her chair back slightly. I don't know. Don't do that. Do what? Pretend you don't know. She looked at the words beside the circle. Don't enter. For a moment, I thought she might actually tell me something. Her mouth opened a little. Her eyes seemed to lose focus, like she was remembering something she didn't want in her head. Then she stood up and took her mug to the sink. Your father worried too much, she said. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. No, it's not. She turned on the faucet, even though there was nothing in the sink. Water hit the metal basin, loud and steady. Leave it alone, she said. Leave what alone? She shut off the water, the map, the woods, all of it. I looked toward the back window. The tree line was visible beyond the yard, dark and still even in daylight. What's out there? My mother didn't answer. That was when I knew this wasn't just about my dad being strange. My mother had always acted like she was the reasonable one, the one who tolerated his fears because it was easier than arguing. But standing there in the kitchen, with her hands braced on the sink, she looked just like he used to look, like she was listening for something. After breakfast, she threw herself into packing again. She moved too fast, pulling things from cabinets, wrapping plates in newspaper, labeling boxes with thick black marker. Keep, donate, trash. I helped for a while, but my mind wasn't on it. By noon, I made an excuse and went out to the garage. My dad's garage had always been messy, but not careless. He knew where everything was. Tools hung on pegboard. Fishing rods leaned in the corner. Old coffee cans full of screws sat on a shelf above the workbench. It smelled like motor oil, dust, cold metal, and mouse droppings. I started opening bins along the back wall. For the first 20 minutes, I found nothing but junk. Extension cords, broken Christmas lights, old tax folders, a cracked plastic cooler. Then I noticed a wooden crate tucked under a folded tarp near the lawnmower. My dad's initials were burned into the side. Inside were survey stakes, a rusted lantern, and a bundle of papers wrapped in a plastic grocery bag. The lantern looked old, the glass was cloudy, and the handle was stiff with rust. When I moved it, I caught a faint smell of kerosene. I set it aside and unwrapped the papers. They were newspaper clippings, a lot of them. Some were original, some were photocopies. Most were yellowed at the edges. The dates went back decades. Early 1970s, late 1980s, a few from the 1990s. At first they looked unrelated. A missing boy, a hunter found dead near a creek, a fire that destroyed an abandoned cabin. A teenage girl discovered walking along Route 36 at dawn, barefoot and unable to remember where she had been. Then I noticed the cuts. Names had been removed from several articles with scissors. Clean little rectangles where names should have been. Victims' names, parents' names, road names, sometimes whole sentences. One headline read, "Third child missing near County Woods." The child's name was gone. So were the names of the parents. Near the bottom of the article, one line had survived. Search efforts continued near privately owned land east of the old Harlan tract. I read it twice, then a third time. Harlan was my mother's maiden name. I don't know how long I stood there holding that clipping. The garage was quiet around me, but not peaceful. It felt like the kind of quiet that comes right before someone speaks. Behind me, something tapped the wall. I turned around fast. Nothing was there, just the mower, the shelves, the tools, the gray rectangle of the garage window. The tap came again, lower this time, not from the wall, from beneath the floor. I looked down at the concrete. For 1 second, I had this ridiculous image of someone under the garage, tapping up through the ground. Then the sound stopped. I packed the clippings back into the crate and carried it to the house. My mother was at the back door before I reached it. She saw the crate in my hands and her face went pale. "Where did you get that?" "Garage. You had no right. Why did Dad keep articles about missing kids?" She stepped outside and shut the door behind her. That small movement bothered me. She didn't want us talking about it in the house. "Put it back," she said. "Why do they mention the Harlan tract?" Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand what you're reading. Then explain it." She looked past me toward the woods. A few dead leaves rolled across the yard. Other than that, nothing moved. "Your father got obsessed," she said. "After you left for college, it got worse. He spent nights going through old records, old papers, old nonsense. It made him sick. Sick how? Paranoid." I almost laughed. "Mom, last night something outside my window sounded like him." Her eyes snapped back to me. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then she whispered, "Did you answer it?" The question hit me harder than I expected. Not "what are you talking about?" Not "that's impossible." "Did you answer it?" "No," I said. Her shoulders dropped a little, like she had been holding her breath. "Good. What happens if I answer?" She didn't reply. "Mom." She opened the door and stepped inside. "We're done talking about this." But we weren't. That night, I waited until she went to bed. Then I spread the map and clippings across my father's desk. I tried matching the article locations to the old survey lines. Some roads had changed names. Some weren't there anymore. But after about an hour, one thing became obvious. The red circle on my dad's map lined up almost perfectly with the old Harlan tract, my mother's family land, or at least, what used to be their land. I found one clipping with a partial sentence near the bottom. Questions remain regarding land owned by the Harlan family, though officials stated there is no evidence connecting. The rest had been cut away. I sat back in my dad's chair and rubbed my face. Then I heard it. 3 soft knocks. Knock, knock. I looked at the office window. Nothing. The knocks came again, this time from the hallway. I stood and opened the office door. The hall was dark except for the bathroom nightlight. My mother's door was closed. The front door was shut. Knock, knock, knock. Now I knew where it was coming from. The basement door. Our basement was really more of a cellar. Concrete steps, low ceiling, furnace, shelves full of paint cans and old jars. The door was in the kitchen, and it had always stuck near the bottom. I walked toward it slowly. When I reached the kitchen, the knocking stopped. The silence after it was worse. Then something dragged down the other side of the basement door. Slowly, like a wet hand sliding over wood. My mother's voice came from behind me. "Don't open it." I turned. She was standing in the kitchen entrance in her nightgown, pale and shaking. "What's down there?" I whispered. She didn't answer. The doorknob turned, only a little, just enough for both of us to see it move. My mother crossed the kitchen fast, grabbed a chair, and wedged it under the knob. "Go to bed," she said. "No, please." I didn't go to bed. I sat in the living room until morning with every light on, while my mother stayed at the kitchen table facing the basement door. Nothing else knocked. Nothing else moved. When the sun came up, she finally went to shower. I waited until I heard the water running. Then I went to the basement door and pulled the chair away. The knob was ice cold. I opened the door. The air that came up smelled like wet dirt. At first, I saw nothing. Then my eyes adjusted. There were muddy footprints on the stairs, bare feet, small near the bottom, larger as they came up. One after another pressed clearly into the dust. They led all the way to the top step, and they stopped on my side of the door. I stood there for a long time, staring at those footprints. The first thing I noticed was the size change. At the bottom of the stairs, the prints were small. A child's bare feet, maybe. The toes were clear in the dust, pressed into the thin layer of dirt that always seemed to coat those old wooden steps no matter how often my mother cleaned. Then, as the prints came higher, they got bigger, not all at once, slowly, step by step. By the time they reached the top, they were almost adult-sized. That was the part my brain kept refusing to accept. Footprints didn't grow as they walked. People didn't change size climbing stairs. I kept my hand on the doorframe and leaned forward just enough to look down into the basement. The light from the kitchen only reached the first few steps. Below that, everything was gray and black. I could see the old shelves on the left wall, the corner of the furnace, and the pull string hanging from the ceiling bulb. The string moved slightly, not a lot, just enough, like someone had passed it a second before. I stepped back and shut the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't want my mother to know I had opened it. I just closed it gently and stood there, listening to the shower run down the hall. Then I locked the basement door. For a few minutes, I honestly thought about leaving, not packing properly, not talking it through, just grabbing my keys and driving until the house was somewhere behind me. But my mother was still there, and whether I wanted to admit it or not, so was the question. What had my father known? When my mother came back to the kitchen, her hair was wet, and she had changed into jeans and an old sweater. She looked at the basement door immediately. Then she looked at me. "You opened it." I didn't answer. Her face tightened. "I told you not to open it. There are footprints on the stairs." She closed her eyes for a second. "Mom, I don't want to talk about it. That's not an option anymore." She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "You sound like your father." Good. That made her flinch. I didn't mean it to hurt her, but it did. For a second, I could see the grief under everything else. Then she pushed it down again. She went to the sink and gripped the edge with both hands. "You need to go home," she said. "I'm not leaving you here. I'm not asking." "Then come with me." She shook her head. "I can't." "Why not?" She looked toward the back window. The woods were bright with morning light, but they still looked wrong to me now. Too still, too close. "Because your father is gone," she said. I waited for her to explain what that meant. She didn't. I put the newspaper clipping on the table, the one with the Harlan track line still visible. "Was this your family land?" She stared at it. "Was it?" After a long moment, she nodded. "It was my grandfather's before it was anyone else's, then my mother's. Then pieces of it were sold off. Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because it didn't matter." It clearly mattered to Dad. Your father got obsessed with things that happened before any of us were born. "Missing children?" She looked at me sharply. I pointed at the crate. "There are at least 10 articles in there. Missing people, fires, dead hunters, kids." And someone cut the names out. She didn't speak. "Did Dad do that?" "No." The answer came fast, too fast. "Then who did?" She finally turned to me. "My mother." I didn't know what to say at first. My grandmother had died when I was 6, and I barely remembered her. A small woman with soft hands and a hard face. She used to give me butterscotch candy from a glass dish and tell me not to run in the house. That was pretty much all I had of her. Why would Grandma cut names out of newspapers? My mother sat down slowly. For a while, all I could hear was the refrigerator and the faint tick of the kitchen clock. "Because she believed names mattered," she said. That answer made my skin tighten. What does that mean? It means she was raised by people who believed stupid things. The same stupid stories Dad heard. She looked at me then, and I could tell she was choosing each word carefully. There were stories about that land, about the woods behind the house, about things people heard out there. Voices, knocking, lights between the trees. People disappearing where no one should disappear. People actually disappeared. Yes. So they weren't just stories. My mother rubbed her eyes with both hands. "You don't understand what this place was like back then. People got lost, kids wandered, men hunted drunk, houses caught fire. Not everything needs a ghost behind it." She said it like she wanted to believe it. Maybe she still did. "Then why did Dad keep the map?" She didn't answer. "Why did he lock that drawer?" Again, nothing. I leaned closer. "And why did you ask if I answered the voice?" My mother's face changed. That question landed somewhere deep. She stood so quickly the chair scraped the floor. "I need air." She went out the front door before I could stop her. I watched through the window as she walked down the driveway toward the road, arms crossed tight against her chest. She didn't look at the woods once. I almost followed her, but I didn't. Instead, I went to my father's office and gathered the clippings, the map, and the few notes I had found. There wasn't enough, not even close. My mother wasn't going to explain unless I could force the truth into the open. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I drove to the local library. It was about 25 minutes away, in the same town where I had gone to high school. The library was small, brick, and almost too warm inside. It smelled like carpet, old books, and burnt coffee from a machine near the front desk. A woman in her 60s sat behind the counter. I recognized her, but I couldn't place her name. She recognized me first. "You're Daniel Reed's boy, aren't you?" I said I was. Her expression softened. "I'm sorry about your father, thank you." She looked like she wanted to say more, but didn't. I asked if they had old newspapers on microfilm or digital archives. She led me to a computer in the back and showed me how to search by date and keyword. The first thing I typed was Harlan Tract. Nothing came up. Then I tried Harlan family. A lot came up. Most of it was boring. Property notices, estate filings, church fundraisers, a few wedding announcements. My mother's family had been in that county for a long time. Then I searched missing near County Woods. That got results. I spent the next 2 hours reading old articles until my eyes hurt. Some matched the clippings from my dad's crate. A boy named Thomas Kell vanished in 1972 while walking home from a friend's house. A woman named Marie Dunleavy disappeared near the old logging road in 1974. 2 brothers claimed they heard their mother calling from the woods, even though she was at home at the time. A hunter was found dead at the edge of a creek in 1981, his rifle still loaded, his boots missing. There were normal explanations offered for all of it. Exposure, animal attack, confusion, bad weather. But the more I read, the less normal it felt. The same names kept appearing around the edges of the articles. Harlan Land, Old Logging Road, County Woods. And then I found the article that made everything worse. It was from 1975. The headline read, "Local woman testifies in disappearance inquiry." The woman was Eleanor Harlan, my great-grandmother. I sat back and stared at the screen. I had never heard that name from my mother, not once. My grandmother's mother had always just been Grandma Harlan in the few stories I'd heard. According to the article, Eleanor Harlan had testified after multiple families accused local authorities of ignoring disappearances near private property. The article said several searches had been blocked or delayed due to disputes over land access. Then came the line I still remember exactly. Mrs. Harlan stated that no one from her household had knowledge of any missing persons entering the wooded section of the family property. No one from her household. It was a careful sentence. Too careful. I printed the article. Then I searched Eleanor Harlan. There were more results. A church notice, a property transfer, a death announcement, and one article from years later, short and badly scanned, about the sale of land once connected to what locals had called the settlement beyond the trees. I leaned closer to read it. The article mentioned an isolated group of families who had lived deep past the Harlan property line decades earlier. It didn't call them a cult. It didn't really explain who they were. It just said they were private, religious, and known for avoiding town unless they needed supplies. Then, sometime in the late 1960s, they were gone. No major article, no big investigation, just gone. The last recorded address connected to them was near the old logging road. I took out my father's map and unfolded it beside the keyboard. The old logging road ran straight toward the red circle. I don't know how long I sat there after that. Long enough for the librarian to come check on me. "You okay?" she asked. I looked up too quickly. "Yeah, sorry." She looked at the map, then the printed article, then back at me. Her face changed slightly. "You're looking into the Harlan land." I hesitated. My dad had some old papers. She nodded, but she didn't seem surprised. "Your father came in here a lot." That hit me harder than I expected. "He did? For a while, yes, years ago." "What was he looking for?" She lowered her voice. "Same thing you are, I suppose. What's that?" She glanced toward the front desk, though no one else was nearby. an answer that made sense. Before I could ask what she meant, she tapped the printed article with one finger. "Be careful with old county stories," she said. "Sometimes people keep them quiet for a reason." I asked her if she knew anything about the settlement beyond the trees. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I heard about it when I was young. My mother used to say those people didn't leave." "What does that mean?" The librarian looked uncomfortable. "It means I shouldn't have said anything." She walked away before I could stop her. I stayed another half hour, but I couldn't focus after that. Every article started to blur together. Missing names, blocked searches, old property lines. My father sitting at that same computer years before me, chasing the same thing. When I finally left, it was getting dark. The drive back felt longer than usual. I kept checking my mirrors. Not because there was another car behind me, but because I had the strange feeling that something was keeping pace just outside the reach of my headlights. About 5 miles from the house, the road narrowed between thick trees. That was when I saw the light. A small yellow glow moved between the trunks on the right side of the road. At first, I thought it was a porch light from a house set back in the woods. Then it moved, slow, steady, like someone carrying a lantern. I took my foot off the gas. The light didn't stop. It kept pace with my car, sliding between the trees, appearing and disappearing behind trunks. I sped up. So did it. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. The road curved left, away from the woods, and for a few seconds I lost sight of it. I told myself that was it. Whatever I had seen was gone. Then the road straightened. The lantern was there again, closer now, moving between the trees like someone was walking beside me in the dark. I didn't slow down again. I drove the rest of the way home with my jaw clenched and my eyes fixed forward. When I pulled into the driveway, my mother was standing on the porch. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past the car toward the road. As I got out, the woods behind the house were silent. My mother's voice was barely above a whisper. "You saw it, didn't you?" I didn't answer. She turned to me, and in the dim porch light, she looked absolutely terrified. "Your father saw it too," she said. "You saw it, didn't you?" My mother's voice was so quiet, I almost didn't hear her over the sound of the engine ticking as it cooled. I stood beside the car with one hand still on the door handle. The porch light behind her made her face look pale and hollow. For a second, she didn't look like my mother. She looked like someone who had been waiting a long time for bad news and had finally heard it. I looked back down the driveway. The road was empty. No headlights, no lantern, no movement between the trees. But I had seen it. That small yellow light moving through the woods, keeping pace with my car like someone was walking just beyond the reach of my headlights. "I don't know what I saw," I said. My mother let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh, but not because anything was funny. "Your father used to say that too." That sentence sat between us for a moment. Then I said, "So he did see it." She looked toward the tree line behind the house. "Yes, when? A lot." I waited, but she didn't add anything else. I followed her inside. The house felt too warm after the cold outside, and the smell of dust and old paper seemed stronger than before. My mother went straight to the kitchen sink and filled a glass of water. Her hands shook so badly that water splashed over her fingers. "Mom," I said, "you need to tell me what's going on." She drank half the glass before answering. "Your father started seeing that light after you left for college." "The lantern." She flinched when I said the word. "He never called it that." "What did he call it?" She set the glass down. "He called it a warning." I thought about the old lantern in the garage, the rusted one in my dad's crate, sitting beside the newspaper clippings and survey stakes. A warning from who? I don't know. That was her answer to everything. I laughed, but it came out wrong. "You do know. You just don't want to say it." She turned on me then. "You think saying things makes them safer?" "No, I think not saying them got Dad killed." The second I said it, the room went cold. My mother's face changed, not angry, worse. guilty. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then she looked past me toward the hallway, toward my father's office. "You have no idea what your father carried," she said. "Then tell me." She shook her head. "I can't." "You mean you won't?" She didn't argue. That night, I couldn't sit still. My mother locked the back door, then checked it twice. She turned off the kitchen light, then turned it back on again. Around 10, she told me she was going to bed, but I knew she wouldn't sleep. Neither would I. I went into the living room and sat in my dad's recliner. It still held the shape of him. That sounds strange, but it's true. The cushion dipped where his body had always leaned, slightly to the left. From that chair, you could see the TV, the hallway, and through the side window, a narrow slice of the backyard. I wondered how many nights he had sat there listening. A little after 11, I heard a low growl. At first, I thought it came from outside. Then I remembered what my mother had said the night before. The dog. We hadn't had a dog in years. Our last dog, Boone, had died when I was in high school. He had been old, nearly deaf, and too lazy to chase anything by the end. But I remembered how he used to stand at the back door sometimes with his hackles up, staring into the woods and growling at nothing. I had forgotten that, or maybe I had made myself forget it. The growl came again, low, close, from somewhere near the kitchen. I got up slowly and walked toward it. Every floorboard seemed louder than it should have been. When I reached the kitchen doorway, I stopped. The room was empty. The back door was locked. The basement door was shut. The chair was still wedged under the knob from the night before. Then I heard claws clicking softly on the floor behind me. I turned fast. Nothing. Just the hallway, the boxes, the dark shape of my father's office door. The clicking stopped. I stood there for a long time with my pulse beating in my ears. Then, from somewhere inside the wall beside the back door, something scratched once, slowly, like a nail dragging over wood. I didn't wake my mother. I don't know why. Maybe because I already knew she was awake. Maybe because I was afraid she'd tell me something I didn't want to hear. The next morning, I found the marks on the kitchen window. They were outside near the top corner of the glass. 4 long scratches running downward through the dirt and old rain stains. Too high for a dog. Too high for a raccoon unless it had climbed the siding. And even then, the spacing was wrong. They looked almost like fingers. I stood in the yard, staring up at them until my neck hurt. Behind me, my mother said, "Don't touch them." I turned around. She was standing on the porch in her robe. "You knew they were there." "No, but you knew not to touch them." She didn't answer. I walked back up onto the porch. Dad knew about this. He kept records. He had maps. He knew about the missing people, the Harlan land, the settlement, all of it. Her lips pressed together. And now there are scratches on the window, voices outside, footprints in the basement, and a lantern following me home. Stop saying it like that. Like what? Like it's listening. I stared at her. The wind moved through the yard, dragging dry leaves across the grass. From the woods came the sound of a branch snapping. My mother looked over my shoulder. I didn't turn around. "Go inside," she said. "Why?" Because I said go inside. For 1 second, she sounded exactly like my father. I went in, but not because I wanted to. I waited until my mother went to the laundry room. Then I pulled down the attic stairs and the hallway. The attic was one of those low, unfinished spaces with loose insulation, old boxes, and a roofline that forced you to crouch. I don't know what I expected to find. More papers, maybe. Another map. Anything that proved I wasn't losing my mind. The air up there was dry and hot, even though the house was cold. I used my phone flashlight and moved carefully across the boards. Most of the boxes were labeled in my mother's handwriting. Christmas, baby clothes, school papers, kitchen extras. Then I saw something pushed behind a rolled piece of insulation near the far wall. A notebook, black cover, bent corners, dust across the front. I knew it was my father's before I opened it. His handwriting filled the pages, tight, slanted, sometimes neat, sometimes rushed. Some pages had dates, some didn't. A lot of it was hard to understand because he wrote like he was making notes for himself, not for anyone else. But certain lines stood out. Saw light again near East Tree Line, 11:42 p.m. 3 knocks from basement. Did not answer. Dog heard it before I did. Then, a few pages later, it does not cross unless invited. I read that line twice. Then again. Below it, written harder into the paper. It knows the names from the records. I felt something move under my skin when I read that. The names from the records, the cut-out newspaper clippings, the missing children, the Harlan family, my father's locked drawer, my mother asking if I had answered the voice. I turned the page. There was one sentence written alone in the middle. If it sounds like someone you love, do not let it in. From below me, somewhere in the house, I heard my mother shout, not scream, shout, Daniel, my father's name. I froze in the attic. Then I heard another voice, low, male, calm. It came from the back door. I'm home. I nearly dropped the notebook. My mother spoke again, but this time her voice was smaller. No. The boards creaked under me as I crawled back toward the attic stairs. Below, the kitchen was quiet except for my mother's breathing. Then I heard her whisper through the back door. He's dead. Leave us alone. Something knocked once on the other side. Then my father's voice answered. You kept them from me. You kept them from me. The voice outside the back door sounded exactly like my father. Not just close, not just similar, exactly. The same low gravel in the throat. The same tired way he put weight on certain words. The same pauses between sentences. Like speaking itself cost him more than it cost other people. I stayed at the top of the attic stairs, one hand gripping the frame, barely breathing. My mother was in the kitchen below me. I couldn't see her from where I was, but I could hear her. She was crying, not loudly. My mother didn't cry loudly. It came out as these small broken breaths, like she was trying to swallow the sound before it could escape. Daniel, she whispered, please. Something dragged lightly against the back door. Then came 3 soft knocks. Knock, knock, knock. My mother said, you're not him. For a few seconds, nothing answered. Then my father's voice said, open up. I thought about the line in the notebook. If it sounds like someone you love, do not let it in. I came down from the attic as quietly as I could, holding the notebook against my chest. When I reached the hallway, I could see my mother standing in the kitchen with both hands over her mouth, staring at the back door like it might open by itself. The chair was still wedged under the basement door behind her. The back door was locked, but the deadbolt was turning, slowly, not all the way, just enough for the metal to click softly inside the frame. My mother backed away. I rushed forward and grabbed the lock. It was ice cold. The second my fingers touched it, the turning stopped. Outside, my father's voice sighed. Not angry, disappointed. That was somehow worse. My mother looked at me, and for the first time since I'd arrived, she didn't try to pretend. There was no argument in her face now. No denial, just fear. I lifted the notebook. He wrote everything down, I said. Her eyes went to it. No, she whispered. Tell me what he found. She shook her head. Tell me, or I'm going to the records office myself. That made her look up. The thing outside the door was quiet. The whole house was quiet. Finally, my mother said, then go. I waited, thinking I had misheard her. What? Go in the morning, look at the records. Read whatever you think you need to read. Her voice sounded empty. Why? Because you won't believe me. I looked at the back door. And because if you read it yourself, she said, maybe you'll understand why your father stopped sleeping. The next morning, she wouldn't talk. She sat at the kitchen table with a blanket around her shoulders and stared at the back door while I made coffee. Neither of us drank. The scratches on the window were still there. The basement door stayed shut. The house smelled like damp paper and cold ashes. Before I left, my mother said one thing. Don't use your name. I turned from the doorway. What? At the records office. If anyone asks what you're looking for, don't give your full name. Why? She looked older than I had ever seen her, because he wrote that it knows names. I drove into town with my father's notebook on the passenger seat and the old map folded in my jacket pocket. The county records office was in a low brick building behind the courthouse. I had driven past it 100 times growing up and never once thought about what was inside. It smelled like toner, dust, and old carpet. A woman behind a glass window asked what I needed. I almost gave my full name out of habit. Then I heard my mother's warning, so I just said, "I'm looking into old property records, Harlan land, maybe around the 1960s or 70s. The woman didn't react much, but her eyes did pause on me for half a second. She gave me a form and pointed me toward a row of computers. For the next few hours, I searched deeds, transfers, probate filings, old survey scans, and whatever else the system had. Most of it was dry legal language, names, dates, parcels, signatures. But little by little, a picture started forming. The Harlan family had owned far more land than my mother had ever told me. Not just the house property, not just the woods behind it. Acres and acres stretching east, past the old logging road and into what the older maps called Black Ash Hollow. The circled area on my father's map sat right near the center of it. In 1976, a year after Eleanor Harlan testified in that disappearance inquiry, several parcels were transferred out of the family name. Some were sold cheap. Some were moved through trusts. One narrow strip of land, oddly shaped and useless looking, was kept. It formed a kind of path, from the woods to the back of our house. I printed that map. Then I found my father's name. Daniel Reed had filed an objection years later, after marrying my mother. I read the document twice because I couldn't understand why he would be involved. He had tried to block a sale of adjoining wooded land to a timber company. His reason was listed as environmental concern. But in his notebook, he had written something else. Do not let strangers cut into the boundary. Boundary. That word kept coming up. In the records, in his notes, even in things my mother had almost said and then swallowed. I searched Eleanor Harlan again. More documents appeared. One was a scanned letter attached to an old estate dispute. Most of it was formal, but near the bottom was a handwritten note, probably copied from an older family file. The debt remains with the name and the soil. I stared at that sentence until the screen blurred. Then I found references to a structure on the old parcel, a cabin. It was listed in a fire report from 1971 as unoccupied rural dwelling, total loss, no owner named, no casualties listed. But one handwritten margin note said, locals refer to site as Listening House. The Listening House. I don't know why those words scared me as much as they did. Maybe because they sounded like something a child would make up. Maybe because they sounded like something that shouldn't have an official record. I printed everything I could. On my way out, the woman behind the glass watched me place the papers into a folder. You related to them, she asked. I stopped. To who? The Harlans. I remembered my mother's warning. No, I said. The woman didn't believe me, but she let it go. When I got back to the house, my mother was not in the kitchen. For a second, I panicked. Then I found her in the living room, asleep in my father's recliner, wrapped in the same blanket. The TV was off. The room was dim. I stood there looking at her for a while. She seemed smaller when she slept, less guarded, almost harmless. Then I noticed something on the kitchen table. My father's notebook. Open. I froze. I had left it in my car. I was sure of that. I had put it on the passenger seat before going into the records office. I remembered seeing it there when I drove home. But now it was open on the table. The pages were spread flat. The house was silent except for my mother breathing in the other room. I walked closer. The notebook was open to a page I hadn't read before. At the top, my father had written, if I die before I finish this, she will hide it. Below that were several lines, written hard and uneven. The Harlans did not just own the land, they fed it. I felt my stomach turn. There were names under that. Some had been crossed out. Some I recognized from the newspaper articles. Thomas Kell, Marie Dunleavy, others I didn't know. Near the bottom of the page, my father had written my mother's maiden name. Then, below it, my name. Not just my first name, my full name. The ink there looked darker than the rest, fresher. I reached out, but before I could touch the page, I heard a sound from the hallway, a soft footstep, then another. I turned. My mother was still asleep in the recliner. The hallway was empty. Another footstep crossed the floor inside my old bedroom. Slow, bare, wet. I stood there with every muscle locked. Then a voice from inside my room whispered my name. Not my father's voice this time, a child's voice, small and close to crying. And then it said, "I found you. I found you." The child's voice came from my old bedroom. I didn't move. My mother was still asleep in the recliner, or at least she looked asleep. Her head was tilted to one side, mouth slightly open, blanket pulled up to her chest. The TV was off. The house was dim and quiet. Too quiet. The voice came again. "I found you." It was small, soft, almost playful. That made it worse. I looked at the hallway. My bedroom door was half open, just like I had left it. There was nothing visible inside except the foot of the bed and a strip of gray afternoon light on the floor. Then I heard a wet footstep, bare skin on wood. I backed away from the kitchen table and my hand hit the edge of the chair. The sound made my mother jerk awake. She looked at me first, then toward the hallway. Her face went slack. "What did you hear?" she whispered. I didn't answer. The child's voice giggled once from my room. My mother stood up too fast and nearly dropped the blanket. "No," she said. "No, no, no. What is that?" She crossed the living room and grabbed my arm. "Get your keys." "What?" "Now." Another wet step came from the hallway, then another. It was moving toward us. My mother pulled me toward the front door. "Don't look at it," she whispered. I grabbed my jacket and keys from the table. My father's notebook was still open, my full name written near the bottom of the page in ink that looked too fresh. I wanted to take it with me, but my mother yanked me hard. "Leave it." We got outside and shut the front door behind us. For a second, nothing happened. Then, from inside the house, something knocked on the other side of the door at about the height of a child's hand. Knock, knock, knock. My mother backed down the porch steps. "We should leave," I said. "We can't. You keep saying that." She looked toward the woods, because it won't stop just because we drive away. I wanted to argue, but I had no argument left. Not after the voice, not after the footprints, not after seeing my own name in my father's notebook. So I said the thing I already knew I was going to say. "I'm going into the woods." My mother turned on me. "No, the listening house is out there. No, Dad found it. That's what all this is about. You don't know what you're talking about." "Then tell me." She didn't. She just stood there in the yard with tears in her eyes, shaking her head like I was already gone. I waited until late morning the next day. That sounds strange, considering what had happened, but I didn't want to go in at night, and I didn't trust myself to go right away. We spent the rest of that day in the house with every light on. The child's voice didn't return, neither did my father's. But sometimes, from the hallway, I heard soft breathing. My mother pretended not to. The next morning, I packed a flashlight, my phone, a bottle of water, the printed maps from the records office, and the old survey map with the red circle. I also took the rusted lantern from the garage. I don't know why. It didn't even work, but my dad had kept it with the clippings, and that made it feel important. My mother watched from the porch. "Please don't," she said. It was the first time she had asked instead of ordered. I almost stopped. But then I thought of my father sitting in his recliner night after night, listening to knocks he never explained. I thought of my name in his notebook. I thought of the child's voice saying it had found me. "I'll be back before dark," I said. My mother looked at the tree line. That's what they always say. I walked across the clearing. The grass was wet, even though it hadn't rained. Each step soaked the bottom of my shoes. The woods looked normal in daylight. Brown leaves, gray trunks, low branches. A few birds calling somewhere high above me. For the first 100 yards, I felt stupid. That was probably the strangest part. After everything, there was still a piece of me that expected the woods to become obviously wrong right away. But they didn't. They were just woods. I could hear insects in the leaves. I could hear branches tapping together. I could see old beer cans and a length of rusted wire near a fallen log. Then I reached the first survey stake. It was barely visible, half sunk into the ground, with an orange ribbon tied around it. The ribbon was old and faded almost white. My father must have placed it years ago. I checked the map and kept going. The deeper I walked, the quieter it got. Not suddenly this time. Slowly. The birds faded first, then the insects. Then even the wind seemed to stop touching the leaves. My own breathing became too loud. The crunch of my shoes sounded disrespectful somehow, like I had walked into a church during a funeral. I found the old logging road about 20 minutes later. It wasn't really a road anymore, just a long sunken path between trees, covered in leaves and broken branches. But it was on the map, and it led toward the red circle. I followed it. That was when I started noticing the trees. Some of them had marks carved into the bark. Old marks healed over around the edges. Not initials, not hunting signs. Just straight vertical cuts, 3 at a time, like tally marks. Every few dozen feet there were more. 3 cuts, 3 cuts, 3 cuts. I almost turned back then. Instead, I kept walking. Long story short, I reached the edge of Black Ash Hollow around noon. I knew it because the ground dipped sharply and the trees changed. The trunks were darker there. The soil looked almost black. There was a smell in the air that didn't belong in the woods. Burned wood, old smoke, like a fire that had gone out years ago, but somehow never cooled. At the bottom of the hollow, I found the remains of the cabin. There wasn't much left. A low stone foundation half covered in leaves, a few blackened beams, rusted nails, broken glass. Part of a brick chimney standing alone at one end like a marker. The listening house. I stood outside the foundation for several minutes before stepping in. I didn't hear anything at first. That was what bothered me. No birds, no insects, no wind, nothing. Inside the foundation, the smell of burned wood was stronger. I saw old bottles near the chimney, green glass clouded with dirt. There were pieces of melted metal in the leaves. A rusted bed frame twisted against one wall. Then I saw the beam. It was lying partly under the leaves near the back corner, black on one side but not fully burned. Something had been carved into it. Names, dozens of them. Some were hard to read. Some were only initials. But a few were clear enough. Thomas Kell, Marie Dunleavy, Peter Voss, Anna Clare. Names from the articles, names my father had written in his notebook. I crouched beside the beam and brushed dirt away with my sleeve. Near the bottom was another name, Harlan. Not a first name, just Harlan. Below that, in smaller letters, someone had carved. Paid in full, my stomach turned. I stood up and backed away, but my heel hit a loose stone. It shifted under my foot, revealing a small gap in the foundation. There was something inside, a metal box. It was about the size of a shoebox, rusted around the edges but still shut tight. I pulled it free and used a rock to break the latch. The sound echoed through the hollow louder than it should have. Inside were old photographs, a child's shoe, and a folded letter wrapped in oilcloth. The shoe was small, too small. I didn't touch it after that. I opened the letter with shaking hands. The paper was brittle, the handwriting thin and slanted. At the top it said, "Eleanor, you promised the names would be enough." I stopped breathing. Behind me, outside the foundation, leaves shifted, one step, then another. I turned slowly. No one was there. The woods stood still around the burned cabin. Then a voice spoke from just beyond the chimney. "You shouldn't have come alone." It wasn't my father's voice. It wasn't the child's voice. It was my mother's. "You shouldn't have come alone." It was my mother's voice. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that I knew exactly where it came from. Somewhere beyond the broken chimney, past the blackened edge of the old foundation, I stood frozen with the letter in my hand. For a second, I almost answered her. That scared me more than the voice itself, because my mother was not in those woods. She was back at the house. I had left her standing on the porch in the morning light, looking like she already knew she was watching me make a mistake. But the voice came again. Come here, soft, tired, almost kind. I folded the letter with shaking fingers and shoved it into my jacket pocket. Then I grabbed the metal box, tucked it under one arm, and stepped out of the cabin foundation. The woods were still empty. No movement between the trees, no shape behind the chimney, no person standing on the old logging road. Then, from somewhere to my left, my mother whispered my name. I turned before I could stop myself. Nothing. Then from behind me, closer this time. Please. That one almost got me. I don't know how to explain it except to say that it sounded real. Not like a recording. Not like something pretending. It sounded exactly like my mother when she was afraid and trying not to show it. But I remembered my father's note. If it sounds like someone you love, do not let it in. I started walking fast, not running at first. Running felt like admitting the woods were in control. So I walked, following the old logging road, trying to keep my breathing steady and my eyes on the ground. Behind me, leaves shifted. One step, then another. I walked faster, the voice followed. Sometimes it was my mother, sometimes it was my father. Once, very faintly, it sounded like a child crying somewhere far off between the trees. Wait, don't leave, I'm right here. I didn't answer. The road looked longer going back. The trees seemed too close together. Twice, I passed the same dead oak with 3 carved lines in the bark, even though I was sure I had been walking straight. That was when I started to panic. I pulled out the map, but my hands were shaking too badly to read it. My phone had no service. The compass app spun uselessly, turning in slow circles as if north had moved. Then I heard the lantern. That probably sounds strange, but I don't know how else to say it. There was a soft metal creak behind me, a handle shifting, glass tapping lightly against a frame. I didn't look back. I ran. Branches hit my face and arms. My shoes slipped in wet leaves. The metal box banged painfully against my ribs. I kept expecting a hand to grab the back of my jacket, but nothing did. After what felt like forever, the woods began making sound again. First insects, then wind, then a bird calling somewhere above me. I broke through the tree line into the clearing behind the house. So suddenly I almost fell. My mother was on the porch, the real one. She stood when she saw me, and for half a second relief crossed her face. Then she saw the box under my arm and the letter sticking out of my pocket. Her relief died. "What did you take?" she asked. I didn't answer until I reached the porch. "What did you take?" she said again. I held up the metal box. She stepped back like it was something alive. Inside the house, I locked the back door, then the front door, then checked the windows. My mother didn't stop me. She just sat at the kitchen table and stared at the box while I set it down between us. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Then I pulled out the letter. "Who was Eleanor?" I asked. My mother closed her eyes. "Your great-grandmother. I know that now." She opened them. "Then why ask?" "Because I found a letter addressed to her in a burned cabin full of missing people's names." My mother looked away. The afternoon light through the kitchen window made the scratches in the glass show clearly. 4 long marks dragging downward from the top corner. "Tell me," I said. She shook her head. "I can't fix what they did. I'm not asking you to fix it." "Yes, you are. You just don't know it yet." I unfolded the letter and read the first line aloud. "Eleanor, you promised the names would be enough." My mother covered her face with one hand. I kept reading silently. The letter was hard to follow. Parts were faded. Parts used words that felt old and strange, but the meaning was clear enough. Someone had written to Eleanor Harlan after the fire at the cabin. They accused her of lying, of giving names, of making promises on behalf of the family. There was one sentence near the middle that made my stomach tighten. "The woods remember what the court refuses." I read that part twice. Then, near the bottom, as long as a Harlan name remains in the house, the debt remains unpaid. I looked at my mother. She was crying again. What debt? She didn't answer. What did the Harlans do? She wiped her face, but her hand was shaking. My grandmother used to say the land protected us. Protected you from what? Scandal, jail, ruin. I don't know. She never said it plainly. But you know enough. My mother looked toward the basement door. Yes, the house creaked softly around us. She took a breath. People disappeared on that land before I was born. Some were outsiders. Some were people from that settlement beyond the trees. Families no one in town cared much about. Poor people, strange people, people easy to forget. I thought of the names carved into the beam. Were they killed? I don't know. Mom, I don't know, she snapped, then lowered her voice. I know what my grandmother believed. I know what my mother believed. They said Eleanor made a bargain after the inquiry started. She gave records, names, things written down. And after that, the searches stopped. The land stayed quiet. That doesn't make sense. No, she said, it doesn't. But Dad believed it. Your father found the records after we married. He found the old clippings, the missing names, the transfers. He thought if he put the names back together, if he knew who they were, maybe whatever was out there would stop. Did it? My mother laughed once, bitter and small. No, it got worse. Outside, wind moved through the trees. For a moment, I heard something in it that almost sounded like whispering. My mother leaned closer. He started hearing them. Not just your father's voice or mine. Others. Children. Women. Men. Some crying. Some knocking. Some asking to be let in. And the lantern. He saw it the year before he died, then more often. Every week. Then every night. Why didn't you leave? She looked at me like I had asked something childish. We tried. That stopped me. When? After you graduated high school. We packed 2 suitcases. We drove to Ohio and stayed in a motel. Your father slept for the first time in weeks. What happened? My mother looked down at the table. At 3 in the morning, someone knocked on the motel door. I didn't say anything. It was his father's voice, she said, begging to come in. The kitchen felt suddenly smaller. We came back the next day. That's why you said driving away won't stop it. She nodded. I looked at the letter again. As long as a Harlan name remains in the house, I said. My maiden name, she whispered. My blood. But Dad wasn't a Harlan, no. He married one. And me, her face broke a little. You came from one. I sat back. For the first time, I understood the fear in my father's notes. Not fully, but enough. He hadn't been trying to solve a mystery. He had been trying to keep it from reaching me. That evening, my mother burned the photocopies from the records office in the kitchen sink. I yelled at her. She didn't react. She just lit them one by one with a match, watching the paper curl black and fall apart. You can't hide this again, I said. I'm not hiding it. Then what are you doing? She looked up at me, making sure it doesn't learn more. Before I could answer, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the house went dark. From the basement door came 3 soft knocks. Knock, knock, knock. My mother whispered, don't move. But the knocking didn't stay at the basement. A second set came from the back door. Then another from my bedroom window. Then, from somewhere deep inside the walls, a child's voice began to hum. My mother stood slowly. Her face had gone completely empty. Mom? She didn't look at me. She walked past the kitchen table, past the open notebook, and toward the back door. I grabbed her arm. She turned, and for 1 second, I swear her eyes looked wrong. Not black, not glowing, nothing dramatic, just empty, like she was listening to someone far away. Then she whispered, I have to go. No, you don't. Her voice changed, barely, but enough. One of us always does. She pulled free with strength I didn't know she had and opened the back door. Cold air rushed in. The knocking stopped all at once. By the time I reached the porch, my mother was already crossing the yard toward the woods. I shouted after her. She didn't turn around. At the tree line, she paused. Then, from the darkness beyond the trees, My father's voice said her name, and my mother stepped inside. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. My mother had stepped into the woods like she was walking into another room. One moment she was at the tree line, pale nightgown moving in the cold air, and the next she was gone between the trunks. I shouted her name. No answer. The house behind me was dark. The power was still out. The only light came from the moon and the open back door behind me, where the kitchen looked black and empty. From somewhere in the woods, my father's voice called my mother's name again. Soft, almost loving. Then my mother answered, "I'm coming." That snapped me out of it. I ran back into the kitchen, grabbed my phone, my keys, and the old flashlight from the drawer beside the sink. The flashlight flickered when I turned it on, but it worked. I also grabbed my father's rusted lantern from the counter. I don't know why. It was useless, but I couldn't leave it behind. Before I stepped off the porch, I looked back into the house. For 1 second, I thought I saw someone standing at the end of the hallway, small, child-sized. Then the flashlight blinked, and the hall was empty. I went into the woods. The grass in the clearing was cold and wet against my shoes. The second I crossed under the first branches, the sound of the house vanished behind me. Not faded, vanished, like a door had closed. "Mom," I called. My voice sounded wrong out there. Too flat, too small, somewhere ahead. Leaves moved. I followed the sound. At first, I could still see the house through the trees behind me. Then the trunks crowded together, and the porch light was gone. I swept the flashlight across the ground, looking for footprints, broken branches, anything. That was when I saw the first piece of fabric. It was tied around a low branch. White cotton, a strip from my mother's nightgown. I touched it without thinking, and the cloth was wet. Not with rain. The night was dry. I pulled my hand back. Farther ahead, my mother called, "I'm here." It came from the left. Then, almost immediately, she called again from the right. "I'm here." I turned in a slow circle. The woods were still. No wind. No insects. No distant road noise. Just my mother's voice moving where it shouldn't move. I kept walking because there wasn't anything else to do. Every few minutes, I found another piece of her clothing tied to a branch. A strip of sleeve. A torn piece from the hem. One button caught in bark. They made a path, or at least they looked like one. But the path kept changing. I would see one strip ahead of me, walk toward it, then notice another far off to the side. When I looked back, the one behind me would be gone. Or maybe I just couldn't see it anymore. I kept telling myself not to panic. Long story short, I panicked anyway. I shouted for her again and again until my throat hurt. Sometimes she answered. Sometimes my father answered for her. "She's this way. Keep going. You're close." Every time I heard his voice, I thought of the coffin. His face, his hands folded over his chest, the cold stillness of him. So I didn't answer. The smell started about 10 minutes later. Burned wood, old smoke. The same smell from the listening house. That meant I was getting close to Black Ash Hollow, even though I should not have reached it that fast. The walk had taken almost an hour in daylight. Now, somehow, I was already there. The ground dipped under my feet. I slipped, caught myself against a tree, and shined the flashlight down. There were footprints in the mud, my mother's bare feet. They led into the hollow. Beside them were other prints, smaller ones, a child's, then larger ones, men's boots, women's bare feet, too many to count. All pressed into the mud like a crowd had walked through seconds before. I followed them down. The flashlight flickered again. The beam thinned, then came back. At the bottom of the hollow, the remains of the cabin appeared between the trees, the listening house. The stone foundation looked darker at night. The old chimney stood crooked against the sky. The blackened beams lay like bones in the leaves. And my mother was there. She stood inside the foundation with her back to me. Her nightgown was torn at the sleeves. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders. She was facing the old chimney, head slightly bowed, like she was speaking to someone I couldn't see. "Mom," I said. She didn't turn around. I stepped closer. That was when I heard her voice, not calling to me, speaking. "I gave him back already," she whispered. "You took him. I let you take him." I stopped. For a second, I thought I had misheard. Then she said it again. "I gave him back." The woods around the cabin seemed to lean in. My hand tightened around the flashlight. "Mom?" She turned her head slightly, but not enough to look at me. "He thought he could fix it," she said. "Your father, he thought if he found the names, if he wrote them down, if he remembered them, it would be enough." "What do you mean you gave him back?" She started crying, but her voice stayed calm. "The night he died, he heard his mother outside the kitchen door. I didn't move. He knew not to answer. He always knew. But he was so tired, my mouth went dry. You said he had a stroke." "He did." The way she said it made my stomach twist. "He opened the door," she whispered. "Just a little. Not all the way. Just enough." The trees behind her creaked, though there was no wind. "What happened?" My mother finally turned. Her face looked gray in the flashlight beam. "He saw her," she said, "or what looked like her. Then he saw everyone else behind her." A soft sound came from beyond the chimney, like breathing. My mother looked back toward it. "I shut the door," she said. "I shut it on him." For a moment, I didn't understand. Then I did. "You left him outside?" "I had to. He died in the kitchen. He crawled back." The words came out flat, like she had repeated them to herself so many times they no longer sounded human. "He crawled back inside, and he looked at me like he knew, like he understood. Then he said your name." I felt something cold move through me. "My name?" She nodded. He said, "Don't let it learn him." Neither of us spoke. Then from the dark behind her, my father's voice said, "Too late." My mother closed her eyes. I raised the flashlight. At first, I saw nothing. Then something moved between the trees behind the chimney. Not a person exactly. More like a shape made of places where the dark was thicker. It stood too tall, then too low, then almost child-sized. I couldn't hold it in focus. My eyes kept sliding off it, but I heard it breathing. Wet, slow, close. Then it said my full name, not in my father's voice, in several voices at once. My mother whispered, "Run." I didn't. I grabbed her arm. She screamed when I touched her, like waking from a nightmare. For a second, she fought me. Then she saw my face, really saw it, and something in her came back. "Run," she said again. This time we did. We scrambled out of the foundation and up the slope. Behind us, the woods filled with footsteps. Not one set, dozens. Leaves breaking, branches snapping, bare feet slapping mud. Voices called around us, my father, the child, a woman I didn't know, my own voice. Somewhere behind me, begging me to stop. My mother stumbled twice. I pulled her up both times. The flashlight died near the top of the hollow, and the world went black except for moonlight through the trees. Then the rusted lantern in my other hand lit by itself. A small yellow flame appeared behind the cloudy glass. My mother saw it and started sobbing. "No," she whispered. "No, no." But the light showed us the way. A narrow path opened between the trees, leading upward. I didn't know if it was saving us or leading us somewhere worse, but we followed it because there was no other choice. Behind us, something laughed in my father's voice. Then it said, "I can see you." We broke through the tree line into the clearing behind the house. The lantern went out. The back door stood wide open. Every light inside the house was on again, and from every window, something was knocking. The back door was wide open. Every light inside the house was on again. For 1 second, that almost made me feel better. The kitchen looked normal from the yard. Yellow light on the counters, boxes stacked near the table. My mother's coffee mug still sitting by the sink. Then the knocking started again. Not from one place, from everywhere. The kitchen window, the basement door, the walls, my old bedroom window, the attic hatch above the hallway. Knock, knock, knock. Different rhythms, different strengths. Some soft, like fingertips. Some hard enough to rattle the glass. My mother froze beside me. She was barefoot, shaking, her nightgown torn at the sleeve. Her feet were dark with mud. I still had one hand around her arm because I was afraid if I let go, she would walk right back into the trees. "We have to leave," I said. She looked at the house. "No." "Mom, get in the car." She shook her head. "It's inside now." I looked past her into the kitchen. Nothing stood there. Nothing moved. But the air inside the house looked wrong somehow, like heat rising off a road even though the night was cold. The knocking stopped all at once. That was worse. From inside the house, my father's voice called, "Don't leave me out here." My mother made a small, broken sound. I tightened my grip on her arm. "That's not him, I know." But she didn't sound like she knew. I pulled her toward the driveway. She resisted at first, not hard, but enough that I had to turn and face her. "Look at me," I said. She did. Her eyes were wet and unfocused. "Dad is gone." She swallowed. "He came back to the kitchen," she whispered. "I know." "He crawled." "I know." I shut the door. The knocking started again, this time from the back door itself. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Then my father's voice said, "You always shut the door." My mother sagged like those words had hit her in the chest. I dragged her forward. We made it to the side of the house before something slammed against the kitchen window from the inside. The glass didn't break, but it bowed outward for a second. I looked back. A handprint had appeared on the glass. Small, a child's hand. Then another handprint appeared beside it. Then another. Higher up, an adult hand slid slowly down the window, leaving a dark streak behind. My mother whispered, "Don't look." So I stopped looking. We reached my car. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the keys in the gravel. I bent to grab them, and from under the car, a child's voice whispered, "Found you." I jumped back so hard I hit the door. There was nothing under the car. Of course there wasn't. I got my mother into the passenger seat and locked the doors. Then I climbed in, started the engine, and threw the car into reverse. The headlights washed over the side of the house. Every window was full of darkness, not dark glass. Darkness pressed against the glass from inside. I backed down the driveway too fast, gravel popping under the tires. My mother stared straight ahead, both hands folded in her lap like she was in church. At the road, I stopped just long enough to shift into drive. Then she said, "Wait, no, one of us has to stay." I turned to her. Her voice sounded different. Not deeper, not monstrous, just flat, empty. "Mom?" She looked at me, but her face didn't seem arranged right. Her mouth was hers. Her eyes were hers. But the expression behind them belonged to someone else. "One of us has to stay," she said again. I grabbed her shoulder. "Stop." She smiled a little. That was the worst thing she could have done. My mother never smiled like that. From the back seat, my father's voice said, "She knows." I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded on the wet leaves at the edge of the road. I turned around fast. The back seat was empty, but the smell was there. Wet dirt, old smoke, cold paper. My mother started laughing quietly. Not loud, not crazy, just this soft laugh under her breath, like someone had told her a secret. I did the only thing I could think to do. I said my father's name, Daniel Reed. My mother stopped laughing. The whole car seemed to go still. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because my father had written that it knew names. Maybe because names mattered, and I wanted to remind whatever was there that he had been real. Not a voice, not a trick, a person. I said it again. Daniel Reed is dead. My mother's face twisted. For a second, I heard something scratch from inside the dashboard. Then my mother gasped like she had come up from underwater. She grabbed my wrist. "Drive." I didn't wait. I hit the gas. The car lurched onto the road, tires slipping, then caught. I drove faster than I should have on that narrow road. Branches scraped the passenger side. The headlights jumped over potholes and wet leaves. Behind us, the house disappeared around the bend. But the knocking didn't stop. It followed inside the car. Soft taps from the trunk, then from the rear window, then from under my seat. My mother covered her ears and rocked forward. "Don't answer," she said. "Don't answer anything." I'm not. The road seemed longer than it should have been. The same curve came twice. The same leaning mailbox passed on the right, then somehow again on the left. My phone had no signal. The clock on the dashboard flashed 12, even though it had been working before. Then headlights appeared ahead. For one hopeful second, I thought it was another car. But the light was too low, too yellow, a lantern. It stood in the middle of the road. I slammed the brakes. The car stopped maybe 20 feet from it. There was no one holding it, just the lantern sitting upright on the wet asphalt, flame steady inside cloudy glass. My mother whispered, "No." The woods on both sides of the road began to move, not from wind, from footsteps, a lot of them, leaves breaking, branches bending, something dragging through the ditch. Then voices started, some far away, some close to the windows. "Open up, help me, I'm cold. I know your name." I put the car in reverse. Before I could move, something knocked on my mother's window. She turned, so did I. On the other side of the glass was my father. Not ruined, not dead looking, just my father, standing in the road beside the car, wearing the same flannel shirt we buried him in. His face was calm, sad. He looked at my mother, then at me, and he shook his head. My mother began to sob. "That isn't him," I whispered. But when he raised one hand and pointed toward the glove compartment, I knew what he meant before I opened it. Inside was an envelope, old, yellowed, with my name written on the front in my father's handwriting. I grabbed it. The figure outside the window was gone. The lantern in the road went out. The voices stopped. For maybe 5 seconds, the world was completely quiet. Then something hit the roof of the car hard enough to dent it. My mother screamed. I drove straight over the dead lantern. The car jumped, glass cracked under the tires, and then we were moving again. I didn't stop until we reached the gas station near the highway. Bright lights, cameras, pumps, a bored clerk visible through the window. Normal things, safe things, or as close to safe as anything felt by them. My mother wouldn't get out of the car. She just sat there shaking. I opened the envelope with numb fingers. Inside was one page. My father's handwriting covered it, rushed and uneven. "If it gets inside the house, do not answer it, not even if it sounds like me." Below that, there was one more line. "The house is not home. It is the lock." I read it 3 times before I understood. My father had not kept us safe by staying in that house. The house itself had been keeping something shut, and we had just left it open. The house is not home. It is the lock. I sat in the gas station parking lot with that sentence in my hands, reading it again and again while my mother shook in the passenger seat beside me. The fluorescent lights above the pumps buzzed softly. A man in a work jacket stood inside the store paying for coffee. Somewhere nearby, a truck idled. Normal sounds, human sounds. But I couldn't stop looking at the road behind us. The dark stretch beyond the gas station led back toward the house, back toward the dead-end road, back toward the open door we had left behind. My mother finally spoke. "We have to go back." I turned to her. No. Her face was wet with tears. Mud streaked her legs. Her hands were clenched so tightly in her lap that her knuckles looked white. "We opened it," she whispered. "You opened it years ago." She flinched. I didn't mean it as cruelly as it sounded, but I was too scared to soften it. Too tired, too angry. All I could think about was my father crawling back into that kitchen, saying my name before he died. My mother looked down. "I thought if I stayed, it would leave you alone." Did Dad think that? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I unfolded the rest of the page from my father's envelope. There was more writing on the back, smaller and harder to read. "If you are reading this, then I failed. Do not trust the voices. Do not trust the light unless it burns blue. Do not give it your name. Do not let your mother bargain again." I read that last line out loud. My mother started crying harder. "What does that mean?" I asked. She shook her head. "What did you bargain?" "I was pregnant," she whispered. I went still. The gas station lights seemed to hum louder. "With me?" She covered her mouth. I didn't know what else to do. Your father wanted to leave. I wanted to leave. But every road brought us back. Every night, something knocked. Your grandmother told me there were ways to quiet it. Old ways. What did you give it? She looked at me. Records, names, things my mother had hidden. The anger drained out of me and left something colder behind. You gave it names. I thought they were dead. They were already dead. I know. No, I said. I don't think you do. She looked away. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then the gas station lights flickered. Once. The clerk inside looked up, annoyed. My mother grabbed my wrist. We need to move. I started the car. I didn't know where to go. Not home. Not back to the house. Not anywhere connected to the Harlans. I drove toward the highway because that was the only direction that felt like it belonged to the world I understood. Behind us, something knocked softly from inside the trunk. Knock, knock, knock. My mother closed her eyes. Keep driving. So I did. The knocking followed us for miles, sometimes from the trunk, sometimes from the back window. Once, from inside the glove compartment, where the envelope had been. I didn't answer. I didn't speak. I just drove with both hands locked on the wheel while my mother whispered prayers under her breath. Around dawn, we reached a motel outside Harrisburg. I chose it because it was bright, cheap, and close to the highway. The woman at the desk didn't look twice at us, even though we must have looked insane. She gave us a room on the second floor. My mother stopped at the door. What? I asked. She stared at the number, 213. Then she whispered, that was the parcel number. What? The narrow strip of land, the path from the woods to the house. It was parcel 213. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because I didn't have anything else left in me. We're not doing this, I said. I went back to the desk and asked for another room. The woman sighed and gave us 118. We slept with the TV on, the curtains closed, and a chair under the door handle. At least, my mother slept. I sat awake by the window until morning. Nothing knocked, nothing whispered, nothing said my name. By noon, I started to believe we might actually have gotten away. Then my phone rang, no caller ID. I stared at it until it stopped. It rang again. My mother woke immediately. Don't, she said. I know. The phone rang 6 times that afternoon. I never answered. That evening, a news alert came through from the county. House fire on rural dead-end road. No injuries reported. I opened the article with my thumb shaking. There was a photo of my childhood home burning against the dark, firefighters standing in the yard, smoke pushing up into the trees. The article said the fire had likely started in the kitchen. It said neighbors reported seeing lights in the house shortly before the flames. It said the owner could not be reached for comment. My mother read over my shoulder. Then she said, "It's gone." But she didn't sound relieved, because we both knew what my father had written. The house was the lock, and locks don't matter after they burn. We didn't go back for the remains. Insurance people called. Police called. A man from the county called 3 times asking about old property boundaries and access to the back acreage. I ignored most of it. My mother answered one call, listened for maybe 10 seconds, then hung up and threw the phone across the room. She never told me what they said. After that, she changed. Not all at once, quietly. She stopped saying my father's name. She stopped sleeping in rooms with windows. If someone knocked on a door, she would go pale and leave the room. Once, months later, I found her standing in my apartment hallway at 3 in the morning, facing the front door. "What are you doing?" I asked. She said, "Counting." "Counting what?" She looked at me like she didn't know I was there. The knocks. I moved her into a small assisted living place the next year. Not because she was old enough for it, really, but because I couldn't watch her alone anymore. She's still there now. Some days she knows me. Some days she doesn't. She has never spoken about that night again. As for me, I tried to move on. That's what people say when they don't know what else to do. Move on. Go back to work, pay rent, answer emails, buy groceries. Act like the world is built out of normal things. For a while, it almost worked. Then last winter, I got an email from the county archive system. I had signed up months earlier for updates on digitized Harlan records. I'd forgotten about it by then. The email said a new batch of estate documents had been scanned and indexed. I should have deleted it. I didn't. I opened the file late at night in my apartment with every light on. Most of it was ordinary. Deeds, land transfers, probate notes. Then I found a scanned ledger from the 1970s. It listed names connected to the old Harlan property. Some I knew: Thomas Kell, Marie Dunleavy, Eleanor Harlan, my grandmother, my mother. My father's name was near the bottom, written in a different hand: Daniel Reed. Under status, someone had written. Returned, I stopped reading for a while after that. I told myself not to scroll farther, but I already knew there would be one more name: mine. It was on the last page, my full name, typed, not handwritten, newer than the rest. There was no date beside it, no status, just my name sitting there in a record that should have been closed before I was born. I printed it once, then burned it in the sink. That didn't help. Sometimes, usually around 3 in the morning, I wake up because my apartment is too quiet. Not normal quiet. That same heavy quiet from the house. The kind that feels like the world is holding its breath. I lie there and listen. Most nights, nothing happens. But every now and then, from somewhere deep inside the wall behind my bed, I hear 3 soft knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I never answer, I never say my name, and I never ever open the window, because I don't know what followed us out of those woods. I just know it knew my father, it knew my mother, and now it knows me. The end.